Agenda, so please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We had an unfortunate incident. We lost one of our students recently, so I'm going to ask for those who can, please stand and we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Sue, roll call, please.
Mr. Amaro?
Here.
Mr. Bendigo? Not yet. Okay. Mrs. Cluffel? Here. Mrs. Lash? Mr. Mull?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Mrs. Steinke? Here. Mr. Wieant?
Here.
So we'll move on to 6.0, Policy, Personnel, and Public Relations. I did check, Brian, if you want to just validate that I didn't see any hearing of visitors scheduled. Okay. So Policy, Personnel, Public Relations, we start with the solicitor's report.
Just briefly, two quick items. The first is I did work with the solicitor for the township to complete the highway occupancy permit documents, including pulling the deeds that we needed. So that was able to be completed timely with PennDOT by their deadline for the application. And then separately, I was in touch with the solicitor for the Northern Berks Regional Police Commission to start the conversation about a full-time SRO agreement for next school year. So I'm optimistic that those conversations will be productive. That's it.
Thank you.
Do you,
Go ahead,
do you
Kel.
want me to start and then just stop when we get to the
Yes.
voting items? Okay.
Yep,
I'm just going
thank
to
you.
highlight them so I don't accidentally read them. All right. So 6.1, persons who wish to address the board, we have none, so we'll move on. 6.2, retirement. The committee is requested to consider and accept with best wishes for the future the following resignation due to retirement effective the last day of the 2024-2025 school year unless otherwise noted. Mrs. Kathleen Gwozdowski, second grade teacher. Any comments? I know I am very grateful to Mrs. Gwozdowski. She had my daughter. She was an amazing second grade teacher. I was very sad that Landon did not have her, although his second grade teacher was just as great. But they, definitely learn a lot from Mrs. G. So she will be greatly missed.
Two of my children had her as well, and she is fantastic and will be sorely missed.
I want to echo that. I think it's hard to say Mrs. G without thinking about footprints and fossils. And I'm pretty sure that there's a video going around that happened maybe when we were virtual schooling that we should probably all see it sometime, but it was really just one small example of her commitment to the students that she serves. And we appreciate what she does for all of our second graders, and we'll look forward to seeing her hopefully as she comes back and substitutes with us, and see her at the retirement dinner.
I mean, anyone else? Okay, then we'll move that forward. 6.3, resignation. The committee is requested to accept with regret, oh my goodness, I can't read tonight, with regret and best wishes for the future the following resignation. Ms. May Rowdenbush, part-time special education paraprofessional, effective March 26th, 2025. Any comments? Then we'll move that forward. 6.4, employment. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the transfer of Ms. Amanda Clark from part-time special education paraprofessional at the elementary school to substitute paraprofessional effective April 11th, 2025. Any questions? We'll move that forward. And 6.5, employment Hauk. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Mr. Brett Hauk, Physics 7 to 12 teacher, Bachelor Step 7, at $62,208, effective with the start of the 2025-2026 school year to fill the vacancy created by the retirement of Mr. Mark Harrell. Any questions? Move that forward. 6.6, employment. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Mrs. Marcelina Moreno, part-time food services worker, 4 hours per day at an hourly rate of $15.44, effective March 31st, 2025, to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Ms. Joanne Cummings. We'll move that forward. 6.7, employment of substitutes. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following substitutes for the 2024-25 school year: Kayla Brooks, guest teacher; Grace Good, guest teacher; Barbara Hill, custodian; Rory Nielsen, guest teacher; Anna Palmer, guest teacher; Mariah Vaughn, paraprofessional. Any questions there? Move that forward. 6.8, employment of volunteers. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following volunteers for the 24-25 school year: Scott Burkert, middle school; Erica Zimcharo, elementary/middle school; Jillian Darlington, elementary school; Laura Gordon, elementary school; Emily Click, elementary school; Melissa Kopix, elementary school; Robert Mullock, elementary school; Megan Nunez, elementary school; Brandy Pine, elementary/middle school; Timothy Shannon, elementary; Stephanie Schnell, elementary; Kelly Troutman, elementary; Megan Verdejo, elementary; Shayna Wagner, elementary/middle school; Robert Wood Jr., elementary, high school, and middle school. Any questions or comments? We'll move them forward. 6.9, employment of game workers. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval the following game worker for 2024-2025 school year to be paid $40 per event: Caden Moyer. Any comments? We'll move that forward. 6.10, employment extracurricular. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following extracurricular appointments for the 2024-25 school year: Mr. Frank Amorel, baseball junior high assistant coach volunteer; Mr. Luke Martinez, track and field junior high assistant coach at $2,000; and Mr. Micah Storms, baseball varsity assistant coach at $3,500. I don't know about that first one. We'll move those forward. 6.11, employment extracurricular advising. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following extracurricular advising appointment for the 2024-25 school year: Ms. Rhonda Seymour for musical, set, costume, and makeup in the middle school for $1,200. I just want to say that they all did an amazing job with the play from what I hear. My son attended. I was unable, but thank you for your help, Rhonda.
It was a great, the set was really nice, and they didn't really have, they put together quickly because it's following the POP production, so great job by Rhonda, Mrs. Seymour, and others who helped her as well.
Yeah. All right.
I do have a question. Are there any other people that worked on that to be getting any money for doing that?
I was actually hoping that when we get to other and the good of the order, we could have Dr. Keener come up and speak to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, then we'll move that forward. 6.12, employment extracurricular. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following extracurricular appointments for the 2025-26 school year. Mr. Darius Tyson, football junior varsity head coach at $6,430. Any questions? We'll move that forward. 6.13, employment. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following extracurricular advising appointment for the 25-26 school year. Mr. Timothy Kyer, football equipment manager at $600. Any comments? We'll move that forward. 6.14, Family and Medical Leave Act. The committee is requested to consider and acknowledge the following Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, leaves of absence for Jana Neeram, Jana, secretary to the principal of the high school, effective March 20th, 2025 through May 1st, 2025. We'll move that forward. 6.15, PSBA 2025 Delegate Assembly Representative. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval to appoint Mrs. Linda Lash, current PSBA liaison, as the PSBA Delegate Assembly participant representing the school district on October 21st of 2025. Any comments?
Thank you, Linda, for doing that. I know we had that discussion one evening.
No problem.
All right, we'll move that forward. 6.16, Contract for Services, PAREAP. The committee is requested to consider and recommend renewal of the agreement with Education Plus for the PAREAP Teacher Application System for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, at a total cost to the district of $1,099. Any questions? We'll move that forward. 6.17, Contract for Services, DocuSign. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the agreement with DocuSign for the e-signature Business Pro Edition system for the period of May 6, 2025 through May 6, 2026, at a total cost to the district of $3,042.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Ms. Brightbill to come up and just talk through the reason that we have this on the agenda and what we're trying to accomplish by using DocuSign.
So I'm excited to have this potential opportunity to utilize this service here at the district to streamline a process. The contract process for extracurricular and the extracurricular advising contracts, it is time-consuming. It is costly. We mail out these contracts in order to get the signatures and get them back. It is time-consuming on the other end of trying to get them back from candidates. Sometimes they're returned electronically, and you can't even read them anymore. They're two-sided documents. Sometimes we get one side back and not the other side. So this system will allow us to have the contracts set up digitally, have them sent out electronically to the candidates' emails, obtain that instantaneous signature, track through the system if we have not obtained a signature, and send reminders through the system to get the signatures as well. It also streamlines it on the back-end process for us as well. The additional signatures of Dr. Tashner and the school board president are also on that document. And again, it takes time to go through that process. We can load some of those signatures into the system ahead of time so that once it's signed by the candidate, the process can be quickly completed. The candidate would receive an immediate copy of the document, as would the district. We're hoping that this will not only streamline this process, but see how it goes with these particular contracts and potentially have the scalability within the system to streamline other processes in our department.
Do you know of other schools that are using this? I would assume they are.
Other districts do use DocuSign for any number of reasons. Specifically for this purpose, I can't
They do use it for
directly
other things.
say. It does seem for us like it will be a viable option to improve our processes.
DocuSign is awesome.
Yes.
I
So
second. It's fantastic.
It's time to join the technology
It's very
agents.
nice, yeah.
Yes.
The cost will be offset just by paper alone, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And mailing, I mean, we're paying postage to mail these things out, so.
Yeah.
And we need the contract before, so what happens is when there's a holdup and we don't get it back, then it holds it up on the payroll end. So this should take care of many of the issues that we've been talking about in the past, and we were trying to find a solution that would address those issues. So thank you to Robin and for the help from the business office in looking into this.
Absolutely. I was going to say, you don't need a wet signature for pretty much anything anymore. So it's,
No,
all the time, it's very fast, yeah.
Exactly.
If we scale this up, what would be the overall cost? Does that really jump up?
It will increase, they do it by, I think this price level is up to 500, I want to say. So I can't specifically tell you what the exact cost would be. For us, even to 500, we're not going to produce that number of contracts in a year. So we're already have a little bit of scalability built in to see how this works for us.
If you like it and it works well, can you let us know? Then maybe we can get longer contracts for less cost per year.
I'll be glad to
I'm
give
sure
you a
you'll like
report
it.
back.
And I would just say, the audit hat on me is like, I'd still like to see them, that, I try to look at them before I sign them as the board president. So
Yeah.
it's sort of just, instead of just having my name on it, we'll have to figure out a process
Absolutely.
that I don't get a one-off or whatever, that we kind of bundle some of these together,
Yeah.
in an email, or if there's a link or something that I can go onto a site on the school and just say, hey, here, please review and approve.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to work out those logistics.
Okay, thank you. I'm just
Absolutely.
saying, you made that comment about, hey,
It's an option.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I was, in all my other roles, I was never allowed to have a signature plate. I had a wet sign every single thing. So I guess I'm old school. Thank you, though, for bringing this forward, because I know this will help a lot. Lost, I never got the contract.
Correct.
And all those fun things that are going on.
Correct.
So, thank you, Robin.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move that forward. 6.18, Contract for Services, Capital Senior and Vision. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval the Capital Blue Cross Benefit Renewal Plan for the Schuylkill Valley School District Senior Product for the period of July 1st, 25 through June 30th of 26, which reflects an increase of $30.50 in monthly premiums paid by seniors, and the Capital Blue Cross Benefit Renewal Plan for the Schuylkill Valley School District Vision Product for the period of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, which reflects no change in monthly premiums paid by the district. Any comments? We'll move that forward. 6.19, Employment, Part-Time Temporary Technology Projects Employees for the summer. The committee is requested to consider and recommend for approval the use of 3 part-time temporary technology projects employees at a rate of $15.93 per hour. Any comments?
I just want to say thank you to the board. We tried this last summer, and it was very helpful in having a very smooth rollout this year for computers for all of our students, making sure that we had everything updated, making sure everything was in the classrooms and ready on the first day. So got a lot of things done that sometimes sit on the back burner because we have a small district, we don't have a large staff, and this was extremely helpful. So I just wanted to say thank you, and it's a good opportunity for students at all, I guess I'll say stages, some that are interns in college, some that are interns who are just leaving high school, and I think out of it came the employment of one of our former graduates who is now working for us. So it was good in all respects, so thank you.
All right, then I'm going to turn it over to you, David.
Okay, thank you. 6.20, voting item, creation of position. The board is requested to consider and recommend approval of the following position and associated job description: Principal, Schuylkill Valley Education Center. I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Lash.
Second.
Second, Cliffel.
Any discussion?
Just a moment, if the board would allow, I want to say thank you This was at the beginning of last year. We were sitting, here last year this time talking about the creation of the youth center, which is now the Schuylkill Valley Education Center, and all the preparation that was going to be needed to put a school together. And that's in effect what it was. It was creating a school. And it seems like, how hard can it be to create a school? But there's an awful lot that goes into it in terms of understanding the district level functions with the different accounting systems, with all that needs to be done for us on billing ends, on transportation, understanding those formulas, understanding the budget, the technology portion of this, getting the academic online programming up. And we were so grateful at that time to have Dr. Winters come in as the chief academic and operations officer. And while most of his focus really was on very quickly getting the youth center up and running, he has done a fine job, and we are so thankful for him and his leadership. And it has opened the door now to where we are at the point of being able to put a principal into that building. And I will say that when we were looking at the qualities that we would need for someone who would be in this position, we were looking for someone who had experience, who had a background in special education, someone who understood what needed to happen in terms of education, not just at maybe one building level, but K to 12, who could grow our online presence, not just with students who are at the education center, but beyond that, with students who might be choosing a charter option because they don't have that. And when we started to think about all of those characteristics, we felt like this was going to be something that we could do in a principal's position, and that we might have people right here inside who could fill that role. So that's why this comes to the board today, to ask that we put that position there. The detention center is coming in the Berks First. The county had a nice article in there that talked about the detention center would be regional, 64 beds. That's going to also be under this umbrella, along with eventually the Berks prison system, where we have students currently. So a principal position would be greatly appreciated.
Any other
Thank you,
discussion?
Dr. Winters, for doing all that legwork. That was a big task.
And also Mike and Dr. Keener, as we, this is only for the position, but I want to say thank you to both of you, Mike and Dr. Winters as well. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We now have a full board. The vote is 9-0. 621, voting item, employment. Macedo. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Ms. Macedo, Executive Secretary to Superintendent, Board Recording Secretary, $66,747.20 prorated for actual days worked, and the associated employment contract for the position. The effective date is upon release of the current assignment, and the appointment fills the vacancy created by the retirement of Mrs. Sue Chrisman. And it's as Susanna.
So move, Cleffel.
Second, Bendigo.
Discussion. I saw the helpful hint, so thank you, whoever put that in for me.
Just a couple points. I know there's been some conversation and question about this, and so I want to take a moment to address some of this, because the question comes up, why is this position different? We do not have, this is an exempt position, which is, and there are a number of reasons for that as well, but this position does not receive any overtime. So the person is required to work evenings, to be here for board meetings, to handle all the board recording requirements that are associated with the board meetings, in addition to other evening events such as preparing for some of our larger scale events when we do hiring, et cetera. This position does not receive as much paid time off as the secretaries in the building. It's actually a week less than that, and this position does not receive time off during the holidays that our building level and other secretarial positions do. This is one of 2 exempt positions in the district. There's an awful lot that goes into this position in terms of the legal requirements. This person has access to all the legal information that's coming through my office. They handle many documents that are coming through the township. They handle things on behalf of the board that are coming through that they have to take care of. And so while that salary seems and is high, there's a good reason for that. There's no overtime available. This is just all part of the job. So I hope that clarifies some of the questions that people may have had in the past, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions. I can tell you that this is bittersweet for me. Mrs. Chrisman has done an outstanding job in this position, and the amount of time that she gives to this job, most people will never, ever understand the amount of hours that go into this far beyond what happens in a regular workday, and she is going to be just very sorely missed.
Any other discussion? And I echo the sentiment of Mrs. Chrisman. Thank you for all your time and effort in keeping us straight, making sure I signed all the documents properly and everything else. I just want to say thank you again. You know, you're not out of here yet, but at every opportunity, I want to say thank you for all the years that we've worked together.
Same here. I'd like to say thank you, Sue. You do a lot for us. You do a lot for us as board members, and you always do it so cheerfully, and I really appreciate that. I love to come in and see your smiling face when I come into the office, so I appreciate that. And all my time on the board, I've only ever had 2 secretaries, and both of them were Susan. So and now we got another one with Susan. So it's easy to remember their names. So, but thank you, Sue. I really appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. That motion passes 9-0. 6.22, another voting item, employment transfer. The board is requested to approve the transfer of Dr. Joshua Keener from the Schuylkill Valley Middle School principal to principal of Schuylkill Valley Education Center effective July 1st, 2025. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Bendigo.
Discussion.
I kind of stopped short as I was talking about the creation of the position, but I'll continue on. When we were looking at the qualities for this position, we were looking for someone who already had experience, who had a background in special education, who aspires to learn all of the facets that go along with this type of position in terms of transportation, billing, some of the financial things that you would not necessarily be confronted with at a building level position. Someone who wanted to expand their impact from just one building to a district-wide K-12 opportunity for a building. And of course, as we think about our internal capacity, Dr. Keener came to mind. And so I had a discussion with Dr. Keener, and this was not an easy discussion for him, only because, not because he wasn't interested, because in fact he was, but because he has enjoyed his time at the middle school, cares deeply about all of our teachers and staff at the middle school, but this is an opportunity for him as well. And so we were elated to hear his interest, and so it's my pleasure to recommend him as the principal of the Schuylkill Valley Education Center. And he would be spending time doing some of the things that we're doing, writing to legislators as well, doing some visits to Harrisburg and to the different offices to try to continue to increase funding as we move forward.
Thank you for taking on that challenge.
Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. 9-0. Thank you, motion passes. Dr. Keener, thank you again. I'm sure you'll be picking Dr. Winter's brain on all this and be his wingman as move forward on all these items. But again, I think, with your background and other things, you bring some skill sets that I think would be valuable for this. So thank you. We have another voting item, 6.23, employment rescindment of retirement. The board has requested and approved the rescindment of the retirement of kindergarten teacher Mary Ellen Coomer. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Can you tell we
Mrs.
want
Chrisman,
her?
it's up to you to figure that one out. This is what,
You pick.
as long as you can pick.
I'll yield to Nikki. We just want her back.
Yeah, I don't care who it was as long as she stays.
Had a great opportunity, got a great call with Mrs. Coomer over the Easter weekend, which was wonderful for the holiday, and I am so excited to have her on the agenda to come and stay. If you've ever been in her classroom, I want to say she's a rock star, but that's actually a true story. She is. In addition to be a rock star kindergarten teacher, she's an amazing singer. But what she does for children, and we are so glad that she wants to stay. And it's a pretty great place down in that kindergarten wing. I shouldn't say just the kindergarten wing, but kindergarten's a special place, and she's part of the reason it's so special. So it's really my honor to ask that you approve the rescindment of her retirement.
I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that come through, and I'm sure there are a lot of little ones out there that will be happy that she's coming back, and I'm sure there are quite a few parents that will be grateful to have her back in the kindergarten classroom. So I'm very, very happy this happened.
Yeah, she is also very impactful. We have so many amazing teachers, but both of my children were blessed to have Mrs. Coomer, and she started off their kindergarten career the right way. So thank you so much for deciding to come back, Mrs. K.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes 9-0. 6.24, any other old or new business?
Just a couple of things, if you don't mind, Mr. Mole.
Okay, I have one, but go ahead.
Thank you.
I'll yield.
Thank you. I want to go back to Mrs. G. I talk about footprints and fossils because it's kind of the lead up to that second grade poetry and pies, and it's part of that elementary progression that happens, and she's a big part of that. And I just want to say thank you again for what she's done. I know these are never easy decisions, but we appreciate you, and these are not easy times, but we appreciate her very much for what she's done, and she's certainly going to be missed, for sure. The game workers, we approved a game worker, but I wanted to just talk to the board and say in the next meeting, we'll probably be trying to bring something for your consideration about game workers. The spring and the fall, it can get pretty cold outside, and we have people that were outside the other week and nothing short of snow for hours on end at $40 an hour. And so, I don't know, I just feel like we should do some kind of exception or something when we get in those different kinds of conditions, if we could, for some of the game workers that are working there. So we will be bringing that back, but I just felt like I needed to give a shout out to the game workers. It was so cold that night. I was not dressed appropriately in sandals, and but they had been out there for hours on end. So a thank you to them, and I just wanted to let you know that that would be coming. Dr. Keener, the middle school musical, we had a choreographer. Is that person being paid? Could you just come up and talk to us about the people that were in the middle school musical? We just want to make sure that people that were helping, I know Mrs. Seymour was on the agenda, but that they're all being paid.
So we have 3 other staff members that assisted Mrs. Seymour that we need to still work with. That was Kelly Howells, Steph Jacobs, and Leanne Moyer. They all helped with the props, the costume design, and the set design. And Mr. Santoro, and I apologize, the name of the individual escapes me, but had someone who he brought in to help with choreography, and we're working to get that individual compensated as well.
So are you going to bring for the next board agenda an option for us so that we could pay Mrs. Howells and Ms. Jacobs as well? And
Yes.
then if the choreographer wants to invoice us, that would be fine too. Or we could put them on the agenda and they could fill out paperwork.
And then
either way.
Leanne Moyer was the third, I think you said, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then, and Leanne Moyer.
I think part of the challenge was, and like Mrs. Stanky said, it was a phenomenal performance.
It was.
And, I give a lot of kudos to Mr. Santoro. His first year, he did a fantastic job. So we're excited to see what we're going to see moving forward. I told him he set the bar really, really high. So, but part of the challenge is him being new to the district and working with a whole new set of middle school musicals, which we've had a significant time off. We're kind of delayed in figuring out some of the staffing settings, but we are working through that. We will get that all to you.
It's fine. We just want to make sure that they know we appreciate them and that they can be paid. And there's, there's an option for some of this already in the CBA. So whatever it's going to be, if you want to just get it on the agenda for May, and then we'll make sure that they get paid.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
I'd
you,
reached
Josh.
out to Mr. Santoro and just said, like, his enthusiasm, I saw him in the back of the auditorium, but the enthusiasm that those kids had, where it came from and the amount of hours that they spent to give an outstanding play performance, and even the stage crew, because I would have a tech background, and the kids that were on stage crew, how enthusiastic they were moving stuff, and then they got some curtain time at the end. So it's great to have it back, because I remember we had Annie Jr. back in the day when my daughter was there, and she graduated in '08. So she was there in 8th grade. So it's nice to see that back. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank one of our board members for helping on the set design or staircase or
Construction.
whatever he was responsible for. So I really appreciated the background. That was great for a middle school production. So
51 weeks till the next one, so.
He said 51 weeks till the next one.
okay.
And Santoro was there and he was talking to him, he said, all right, I've already narrowed it down to 20 shows, but I'm narrowing it down to for next year. So why don't we take a week and breathe a little bit? We can start talking about next year's show.
When you see Mr. Santoro in a auditorium at 7 o'clock at night with 30 or 40 students up on a stage, and he's sitting in the back commanding the stage and the audience, and they're all following right along, it is really something to see. Tremendous job that he did, as did the high school. And my final thing was just middle school. I know there'll be questions about the transition, and so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. We'll be posting the middle school principal position. Of course, Dr. Keener's had a great deal of experience, and we'll be looking for someone who has the requirement will be assistant principal. The preference will be additional principal experience. But we will be posting that tomorrow as well, and keeping in touch with the middle school teachers as we move through this transition. Thank you, Mr. Mull.
Thank you. I just had one thing. Dr. O'Donnell, I just wanted to say, we're hiding here behind Robin. I just wanted to say again, congratulations. It was in the paper. It was on the website, for your national award. It's always nice to be recognized. There was a lot of time and effort, and your team and all the ones that participated. I remember hearing the stories of the trip and when they came back, so it was wonderful that we could fund that for them to go out, and then to see the enthusiasm when they came back and the excitement of presenting at a national conference, and then, the kudos on top for both the administrator from Kutztown and yourself to win that national award. I will say, because of being on a county board, the BCTC board, and also hearing from others, I know they're trying to replicate that with other districts, and they're like, how did you do that? Well, those are secrets that I'm not going to share willingly, like, I like that we have the pipeline to try to get, student teachers and everything else in. So I did not divulge all of, not that I knew a lot of details, but I didn't divulge a lot. And I said, you have to figure it out on your own, because that's what we did. But Kutztown is a great partner. And, but I know there's 2 or 3, because they come back to me, yes, we're working on it too, But I want to say thank you for spearheading that. That's the first in the county, I think. And if not, it appears to be, at least from the limited knowledge I have. But I just wanted to personally say thank you.
Mr. Mole, that made me think, in the spirit of thank yous with Dr. O'Donnell, I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Saucer and Dr. O'Donnell. They just came back yesterday, to be specific, 8:15, 8:30 last evening, and took our students to Costa Rica. And we're going to hear about trips a little bit later in this meeting, but the dedication to our students to leave your family, leave your holiday, and to make sure that our students had that type of experience, that's what Schuylkill Valley is about. And I just need to say thank you to Dr. O'Donnell for serving as the administrator, for Mr. and Mrs. Saucer for all their work, for all the parents who helped make that happen, and to Mrs. Aldifer, who's sitting here today and is going to talk to us, because really her insertion into the district has us traveling. And I'm just so grateful, and I want to thank this board for approving all of that. But Dr. O'Donnell, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
So anything else for 6.24?
Yeah, I just have something quick. I don't know if this falls under policy and personnel or maybe student services, but I had brought up to you about someone rollerblading at the stadium, and I just want to know if we, have done anything about getting some signage so that I don't have to be the fun police at the stadium.
We appreciate you being the fun police at the stadium. We are ordering signs we had the same thing happening at the tennis courts. Often on the weekends I'm here, and I've had to have some conversations at the tennis courts, and we are ordering signs for the stadium and for the tennis courts, so that people are not, they're not the place to roller skate, to inline skate, to skateboard. We don't want someone getting hurt. So we'll take care of those signs, but I know Dr. Winters has already been on that.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want that to get forgotten.
And then the only other thing to dovetail, Dr. Tashner, on what you were saying with our game workers, is there a possibility, whether we, either add it with the athletic department's budget, or, to get something, when we have game workers, whether it's a jacket, whether it's something that we can kind of have those people be somewhat identifiable, because sometimes when somebody comes up, you're like, well, who are you? So if we would get them something that would say that, hey, they're a game manager or whatever that is, so that, we'll give you one too if you want to be a volunteer game manager, Kelly. But
I'm at enough of the events, so.
But what I'm just saying is that we can get something that would identify our workers and also give them something that would help them keep them warm.
Or just give them a little clout to say, yeah, you need to listen to me.
Yeah, and
because I was questioned of who I was and had to explain.
We give you the jacket,
That's a great idea. I saw Dr. Winters writing that down, so I know it'll get taken care of. But that is a great idea, so that people don't have to try to explain who they are.
Right. I think it's just something identifiable to have. Been involved, booster president for 12 years on the boosters, for more years than that, involved in all the sports. You go to these things and, sometimes you can't always figure out who's, I look for a staff or faculty member to say, okay, I think this person is in some capacity here, that I can direct them, because then they're always in access with our, police force and everything else. So probably a little late in asking for that, but I wanted to bring that up. So anything else for 6.24? Hearing none, we'll move to 7.0, curriculum and technology.
Okay, 7.1, is there anyone that wants to speak? No? Nobody signed up? Anybody out there? No? Okay. 7.2, cybersecurity software. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the cybersecurity software agreement for the 2025-26 school year as presented, and that's with Sentinel-1, and that will be replacing some of our older software, and this is to keep our technology safe. So do you have anything you'd like to share about that? No? Okay. Well, I didn't know if you wanted to tell us how this came about or anything, but okay, so any questions about that? If not, we'll move that forward. 7.3, the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the 25-26 Schuylkill Valley High School Program of Studies, and we're having a presentation on that, so. Thank you, Mrs. Crater.
Good? It's on. Okay, perfect. All right, good evening. So just a few highlights that I wanted to go over quickly this evening on the program of studies for the 25-26 school year. So to get started in our agricultural program, there were just a few updates to some of the course descriptions. That was based on the Delaware Valley College course descriptions and their curriculum that they recommend. This ensures the alignment with the college level expectations and the industry standards, and it prepares students for post-secondary success in agricultural studies. Next, I added the information about our early college program tracks through Kutztown University. So we heard earlier about our partnership with Kutztown University. This is another wonderful opportunity that is here and offered to our students. This year, this upcoming school year, not only will they have an early childhood education track, but they are also adding a general studies track as well. So that information is included in the 25-26 program of studies. And this early college program provides students with the opportunity to earn college credits while they are still in high school. So they are leaving high school with those college credits under their belt and can really get a full semester worth of credits in before they graduate their senior year. There were also just a few updates to the English course descriptions, mostly for just our 9th and 10th grade English courses. These descriptions were based on the newly implemented ARC, American Reading Company curriculum that we implemented this school year. There was one new course that was added to the 25-26 program of studies, and that is PIAA Officials Training and Certification course. So this course was designed to help address the shortage of PIAA officials here in the state of Pennsylvania, which, if you are familiar with athletics in any way, we are at a great shortage of officials these days across all sports here in the state of Pennsylvania. So this course would offer training and certification for students interested in officiating. It prepares students to serve as certified sports officials upon the course completion.
Mrs. Crater, does that count as a certification in their pathway?
It would count as an industry-based certification, so another pathway that they could meet with that certification. And then we also added some additional Cisco networking certification courses. As Mr. Binkley
continued his training in those courses this school year. So those new courses were added to help support that continued Cisco networking certification program. It builds on the foundational networking skills, and this prepares students for industry-recognized certification and careers in IT. So again, another program that we're offering here in-house, along with our agricultural program, that will allow students to gain some of those industry-based certifications that would meet and qualify for one of our Act 158 pathways. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight some ongoing work that we plan to do on our program of studies, and that is moving the program of studies to a completely interactive digital format. So not just uploading the PDF link to the school district website, but actually making an interactive book that parents and families could use that would be posted on our website. So we're hoping that work can continue throughout the summer and even into next school year. And we'll just design that for the ease of navigation and enhance user experience. Any questions?
When that's up and running, could you show that to us, please?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Appreciate that. And is there an age that you can get your PAAA certification?
So right now, that course is designed for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors to take.
Thank you.
And we have, I looked at the numbers today, about 13 students interested in taking that class. Yeah.
It's tremendous. I want to say thank you. I think Mr. Krills is teaching that class. And when I look down this list in a very short time of things that have happened at our high school, certification opportunities for students. Of course, we've always had CPR and first aid, but now to add the PIAA to it, when you think about what has happened in our Cisco lab, our Ag Science lab, Mr. Binkley has just done a phenomenal job at getting that Cisco lab up and running, and thanks to our technology department as well, the Ag Science, and even when I look into what's happening in our world languages, and students are traveling, and I want to just give a shout out to Mrs. Hubler and what's happening in her baking courses that this board approved last year, if you remember, and what students are doing there. It's really been amazing to watch all these things. Mrs. Hallman with TSA, and just very grateful to all the people who are creating these very robust opportunities for our students.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ricker.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that? If not, we'll move that forward. 7.4, visual sound, the middle school auditorium. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the proposal from Visual Sound to replace the middle school auditorium sound system, projector, and screen. And I, for one, am very grateful that we're doing this, because what was put in there when that auditorium was made was not exactly always workable. So
I want to second that. The 8th grade award ceremony last year was really hard to, hear what was going on. So I don't know if I can recommend if we could maybe see if the auditorium in the high school is available for this year's 8th grade awards ceremony, since this won't be completed by then.
okay. Mike?
You're here. Do you want to add anything?
And does anybody have any questions for Mike? I know that the price tag on this is, on first glance, it's staggering. And we have to redact a few things out of this, but to put it out there for the public, just to make sure, it's about $100,000 roughly. And that sounds like a lot, but Mike, maybe you can talk us through what that includes.
Sure.
And what we get out of that. And let me just confirm, I think this sound system that's in there was the original sound system that came with the building, or is it?
Yeah, and there's still a mixer back there that we're looking to try and consolidate. We're basically ripping and replacing all the old equipment. all the way down to some of the wireless microphone radios. Trying to redesign that so that way they're a little bit more spaced out, because right now they're pretty close, and then that impacts range. As well as a new projector and a projector screen. The screen that's in there now is what's called a 4x3, more of a square shape, and the new projector going in would be a widescreen projector. And then I also asked the vendor to look into, it's called Dante Technology, networks some of the equipment, so that way if we wanted to expand or look at some more industry standard type AV equipment, it just makes it a lot more manageable for us to either do that ourselves or have another vendor come in without having to run all this new cabling that's going to be analog only. So really brings us way more modern into that space.
It really cuts your installation costs down when you can just
Yeah, a lot of the new
piggyback on our existing platforms.
Yeah, a lot of the new cabling now trying to go to, your traditional, looks like a network cable, plugs in like a network cable as opposed to like the banana clips or the screw-in terminals and things like that. A lot more stable connection as well.
This is the same company that did the elementary
Correct.
installation last year. They did a very nice job, and they improved the quality of sound in the elementary cafeteria / auditorium immensely, along with the projection and the screen.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we'll move that forward. 7.5 Pilot Program Request. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of pilot programming for the Zones of Regulation curriculum and for the Everyday Speech curriculum. So, Mrs. Rexford?
Good evening. So a couple of weeks ago, we got our special education teachers, K-12, together just to talk about mainly the language arts curriculum, talk about present levels, really how we could help them to accomplish what they needed to accomplish, and get some help also from our regular ed teachers, and just to talk about some other reading focused items with them. And in that conversation, in that meeting, there was a request to pilot a curriculum for emotional regulation. And there were two programs that were discussed, Zones of Regulation and Everyday Speech. So Zones of Regulation is actually already being used, but Everyday Speech is not, and we don't currently have that either. So they run an 8-week pilot that won't cost us anything to run, but we would obviously have to start that in the next school year because we don't have 8 weeks left in this one. So we would just like to be able to pilot that and have the teachers, give their feedback and decide what works best for their students, obviously with parent permission to use it and the proper professional learning for them to be able to implement those things.
Thank you, Mrs. Rexroad. I would just add to that, part of the way we, as Mrs. Rexroad said, and part of this conversation with language arts, we were talking about the science of reading and the research base, and we were talking about all of the pieces of this that are necessary in special education, the 5 areas of reading, and you can move down the middle of that science of reading and have all of it. But there's a piece that sits outside reading motivation, and when we talk about some of the things, executive functioning, and that are, even though I may have all of these components, it can get in the way. Self-regulation, executive functioning, some of the disability categories that the special education teachers were talking about, and that led us into this discussion about what they had been asking for in terms of these programs. So we'd like to, as Mrs. Rexford said, pilot them and see what is going to work best for our teachers and for our students before we have to make that decision.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And we'll move that forward. 7.6, other old or new business. I do have one. I see that we have a student that will be graduating from RAC before she graduates from Schuylkill Valley. I think Taylor Henry, I believe. And she has been going to RAC with the dual enrollment and has accomplished enough to get her associate's degree, so she will, I think that's a great thing. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Rexroad and Dr. Tashner for our curriculum committee meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, where we seemed to accomplish a lot, looked at a lot of things that will benefit our kiddos in the future, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of that for even next year. And I also got to sit in on one of the science curriculum materials presentations for a possibility that we could use that next year, so see what comes up with that. So I thank Mrs. Rexroad for getting all that together for us.
Just to add on to that is, we have to be competitive, with lots of other things, cyber schools, opportunities that some people decided to homeschool. And it's exciting to see, what we're doing with the curriculum to get those improvements, to be competitive, to give our kids a competitive edge, to see all the certifications that we're now offering. Again, the dual enrollment for RAC, to basically saying that, hey, it's up to the individual student, with support from their parents, to say, hey, I want to do this, and to encourage them to do it. But for us to be able to give all these opportunities, I just want to say for all those involved, because I won't try to name all of you, is to say thank you for what you guys have been doing in the background and putting our students first.
Alrighty, 8.0, Budget and Finance 8.1, persons wish to address the board, hearing none, having none. 8.2, approval ratification of bills. The committee is requested to consider and recommend the board ratify the payment of bills in the following amounts from March 10th, 2025 to April 29th, 2025 as presented. General Fund, $4,433,937.53. Capital Improvement, $101,811.29. Cafeteria Fund, $71,380.36. High School, Middle School Activity Fund, $16,889.65, for a grand total of $4,624,018.83. Questions? We'll move that forward. 8.3, the committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the budgetary transfers as presented. Questions regarding those? Bless you. Moving that forward. 8.4, CSIU service rate agreement for the 25-26 school year. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the computer service rates for the 2025-2026 with the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit for the district's fund accounting, payroll, and personnel software. The estimated cost for the 25-26 is $26,815 based on estimated student enrollment for the year end. This compares to the actual cost spent for the 2024-2025 of $25,727, a 4.23% increase due to the annual rate increases. Do we have any questions for that? Moving that forward. Treasurer's report as shown. Questions?
If you want me to take
David, it's all you if you want it.
Okay, I'll take it. 8.6, voting item, proposed final budget approval. The board is requested to approve the proposed final general ledger final general fund budget in the amount of $49,771,295. This budget does not include a tax increase. I would entertain a motion.
So moved, Cluffel.
Second.
Second, Bendigo.
One of the things, I think this is now 11 out of the last 13 years, Schuylkill Valley, if my numbers are right, 11 out of 13 years that the Schuylkill Valley has been fortunate not to have a tax increase. And I think the two tax increases were a $0.25 and less than a $0.5 because I know the numbers came combined $0.75 mil. Again, as I sit on several other boards, I've been told I have to stop bragging about Schuylkill Valley and, what we're doing to control our costs and, because I sit on other boards where they have a $4 million deficit. They have a $3 million deficit. They have a 5.7 mil increase. Kutztown has a 10.1% increase that had to go to referendum, so that'll be on the ballot in May. So we've been fortunate. I've heard from the community a lot of people concerned because was flat out told because the county increased your county taxes by 8%, and what's that going to happen for my summer taxes or my school taxes, because that's the bigger one. And I said, I can tell you at least our proposed is with everything going on that you're not going to have a tax increase. And the sad part is that the county raised their taxes and everything that we've done doesn't include them making us whole for the youth, for the facility. We're still in that negotiations with the county on that, and now we have the detention center. And so the unfortunate thing is that our taxpayers here at Schuylkill Valley have had to shoulder the costs of a program that was developed by the county, and only because of the geographic location of it being here in our physical school district does our taxpayers have to cover that. So we haven't left that alone yet, but we've still managed with everything going on to be able to present this budget. So there's a lot of hard work. Kristen Wallace, Mrs. Wallace, our central office, our building administration to work on their budgets, our other directors to work on their budgets to try to make sure everything's reasonable. We've looked at everything and we've looked to approve all of the requests that are there, so there really hasn't been funding that we've cut. We're looking at a couple other larger projects that'll also be done without a tax increase. So I'd like to commend everybody involved, from the board and the administrators, and even the rest of our staff have come up with ideas saying, hey, can we look at this or can we fund this? I just want to say there's a lot of effort and hard work that's gone on this. So that's all I wanted to bring up. I'm sure we have other discussion.
Mrs. Wallace has a presentation if the board would like to hear it for the purposes of the public.
If you turn around, he'll hand you the clicker.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Mike. All right, thank you. Good evening. I'm here to present the proposed general fund budget for the 25-26 school year. Again, this is a no tax increase budget. Again, this is a very lengthy process to go through this, and does take a lot of time and effort by all departments. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. We've come together collaboratively to be able to put this all together. So I want to start off first by just providing a quick state budget update, and I'll go through the appropriations for each. Normally, on a given year, the governor initiates the budget process by submitting a budget proposal to the General Assembly in February. The legislature then reviews and amends the proposal through appropriation hearings. That is kind of currently where we're at right now, is the legislative review. We normally will have to approve our budget before the state would approve their budget. So everything that we have right now, we have information from the state. Again, these are proposals. They're not approved as of yet. So in terms of our budgeting, we won't know for a fact if we'll receive that before we approve our budget. So again, we're remaining conservative with our estimates. So here you'll see it's a $75 million proposed increase for the basic ed formula. There's a $40 million proposed increase for special ed funding. There's a $526 million increase in the new adequacy tax equity investment formula driven into Ready to Learn. Now, for us, we wouldn't receive that $526 million increase. We would just receive our share of the Ready to Learn grant, which would be staying flat for this fiscal year. One thing to mention, too, when it comes to the appropriations, specifically for basic ed, 152 districts received 3% of that total $75 million proposal. 348 districts are proposed to receive 97% of the total appropriation. We're one of the school districts, one of the 152 to receive that 3%. So we would receive a very, very small share, proposed small share of that $75 million. So a little bit further into state funding, in terms of the total, so $8.23 billion is what's on the books right now, or on the proposed for the basic ed funding appropriation. Again, a $75 million proposal over last fiscal year. There's an $818.4 million Ready to Learn block grant. Again, our share would stay level for 25-26. Again, that's a $526 million proposal for the additional adequacy adjustment. There are certain school districts in Berks County that are receiving that portion. When it comes to the tuition rate, it's at a median of about 14,000 that would receive the proposed additional adequacy. Since we're above that, we're well over 16,000, we would not be receiving any additional share. And there's a $1.5 billion appropriation for special ed. So again, a $40 million increase over last fiscal year. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how the basic ed formula works, and then I'm going to factor in some figures so it kind of helps work through the formula. So you start first with your 3-year average school district average daily membership. So the ended up being that the 3-year average, now again, this is actually the 3-year average for the ADMs, that will actually that will potentially change before we're through with the budget. So the ADMs could potentially change before June. It factors in student-specific factors such as poverty weights, the English language learner weights, and the charter weights. And that then creates your weighted district ADMs. Now your weighted district ADMs would then carry forward, and we would factor in district-specific factors. So the district-specific factors, districts typically receive a small share of that sparsity size adjustment. It's very minimal. But the two that are most important being the median household indicator, so the median household income indicator, which is driven off of your 3-year median household income, and the local effort capacity index, which measures a school district's local effort to create or to gain the local tax revenue. So to kind of put this all together and help you understand how this kind of all works and how we would be potentially receiving any type of additional student and district-specific factors to factor into our ADMs, if we start with our 3-year average at the 2134.86, we add in our poverty weights, the ELL weight, and the charter weight, it gets us to the weighted average of 2293.19. But when you start factoring in the district-specific items, such as the median household income, as well as your LECI, which again is the local effort, you only end up having a total adjusted ADM of 2167.64, which is only about a little over 30 compared to where you actually started with your 3-year average. So what this is essentially saying is, again, we're a relatively rich school district. Our median household income indicator is really pulling that adjusted ADM down. Ultimately, we're receiving less funding. And to speak a little bit about the LECI, or the Local Effort Capacity Index, in terms of raising taxes, and if there would be a tax increase, that would also drive our LECI down as well, which would even lower our ADMs more, which ultimately could potentially result in less state funding. So I just wanted to give a quick comparison. You'll see a couple school districts here that are also in Berks County, Schuylkill Valley being highlighted in yellow, and I have our 3-year median household average, the indicator, the median household indicator, and the LECI. You'll see out of all of the school districts listed, the average for the median household income for Schuylkill Valley is the highest. The median household income indicator at the 0.78, so you'll see how that's driven off of the relatively highest median household income average. And then the LECI is at the 1.21. So again, compared to some of the other school districts in our area, it really shows on this slide that we really are a rich school district in terms of our median household income average. And even compared to prior years, it still remains relatively strong. So again, pulling our income indicator down, which results in slightly less funding for us overall. So I kind of spoke about this a little bit before. It is important just to mention that, again, not all of the pieces of the formula are final. Again, the ADMs, not necessarily final yet, as well as the charter ADMs, and again, ultimately the current expenditures. So this is all still preliminary data, so things could change. But again, we're remaining conservative in our estimates with what's currently in this budget.
Mrs. Wallace, could you just, before you get to revenue, go back to your slides one more slide, please. I just want to highlight how important, you hear people talking about the collection of data in school and PIMS. That's where this information comes from. That 3-year school district average, when we're talking about that information, we're talking about proper tracking of attendance rates. We're talking about proper tracking of all the different student groups that we have, and everybody getting that information properly entered into the system, because we pull the report out of PIMS.
Yes.
And it's not even necessarily about just having it accurate. If it's not done timely enough, we won't get credit for those students. And you can see how important that is for us. That's a 3-year average. If you get it wrong 1 year,
for 3 years,
it's going to hurt you for 3 years. If you get it wrong 2 years, now you're talking about even more time. So when we talk about how do we get that number, it's more than just how many kids are in your school district. We're talking about how many days are they attending here? When did they come into school? Are they students with disabilities? Are they ELL students? Are they general education students? Much goes into, are they on free and reduced lunch? All of that information gets captured and has to be done accurately. And for us, it becomes increasingly important, because what you can see is that we are not going to get adequacy money.
No.
That is not going to happen. Our tuition rate's going to prevent us from some of the additional funding that years ago, when the formula was different, schools might have access to. So just something for the people that are at home tonight, trying to understand also how all of this fits together, and just informing everyone that that funding formula has changed significantly from what it was years ago.
And less, I was to say too, just to kind of add to that, less funds are being pumped through the formula as well. So kind of going back to my other slide where I had mentioned that we were one of the roughly 150 school districts that are receiving potentially that 3%, it's much less than prior years.
That's a really great point for everyone at home that's listening to this presentation. 97% of that $75 million is going to go to about over 300 schools. But 3%, There's 100 and how many?
52.
152 schools are going to share 3%. And we are one of those 150 schools that are going to share that 3%. So our funding is tremendously different, and it is squeezed from what it used to be.
Okay, so I'll skip ahead here. So moving on then to our budgeted revenue sources, you'll see here 70% is our local tax. So again, a large majority of our revenue source is made up of our local tax revenue. However, you'll see on the kind of the left-hand side, the brown shaded piece of the pie, 26% is still the state revenue. And again, that's the piece that's more or less the unknown right now. So again, remaining conservative with our estimates, but that is still a large piece of the pie that we would have to still have final figures for. So staying with local tax revenue, we utilize the taxable assessment value based on the 1/125 assessment report, and we factored a 1% increase for the 25-26 projection. Again, this is a no tax increase budget, so the millage rate would remain at the 27.82. We also assumed a 97% collection rate. Historically, we have been collecting closer to 98, in some years 99%. So again, we're remaining conservative by assuming a 97% collection rate. And this is only currently including the current real estate, not the interims or delinquents. So here's a 5-year trend of our current real estate. Now, as Mr. Mole had mentioned, 11 out of the 13 years, we did not have a tax increase. So going back to 2021, we did not have a tax increase for either of these years. But it's good to note here that you'll see the increase year over year. We are still increasing, going from 22 to 23 significantly. And then over the last roughly 3 years, we've kind of hovered around the 3%. Again, that's based on the assessment value, that's new construction, new developments coming into our townships. So moving on to the proposed 25-26 budgeted expenditures. So 80% of our total expenditures are salaries and benefits. Now, another 10% are committed. So that would be any contracts we have for transportation, utilities, any other purchase services, bond-related items. And then the remaining 10% of our budget is really the uncommitted piece. So that's the piece that we can adjust if needed. That could be budgetary reserve, supplies, dues and fees. So that's a small amount of our overall budget. Again, 90% of the expenditure budget really is committed. So again, 10% really is the piece that we're able to adjust. So again, what does that translate to then in dollars? You'll see here it's a balanced budget, meaning total revenue, it matches total expenditures. And again, the revenue represents a no tax increase. So at the $49,771,295. So getting a little bit further into the revenue and expenditure assumptions. So what I had mentioned on the past slide, there's a 1% increase on the fiscal 25 current real estate taxes based on assessments. Again, historically, year over year, we've been performing better. And again, assuming a 97% collection rate. EIT, we did base that off of the projections from Burke's EIT. Interest on investments, we kept flat. Rates are beginning and have been gradually reducing. We're going to just remain flat to remain relatively conservative. They have reduced slightly, not as aggressively as they originally hoped, but they are coming back down a little bit. Basic ed funding, we did budget the 25-26 fiscal year based on proposed figures from PDE. Again, we won't have any final figures until the governor's budget is passed. And for special ed funding, we did budget the 25-26 fiscal year based on the proposed figures from PDE as well. So the total changes yield a $2.2 million increase in revenue for 25-26 over the 24-25 fiscal year budget. So for the expenditure side, total salaries, wages, and benefits increased $1.5 million over prior year. The majority of the increase is due to staff annual increases, averaging about 4%, plus the rising benefit costs through the consortium. All building budget expenditure requests are currently factored into the total. So again, no reductions. Any requests that we received from the building level, from different departments, that's all factored into this budget. We also kept the curriculum materials. We kept the same as the budget level that we had in for the prior year. Debt service payments are kept flat. Again, it's based on our debt schedule. There's been no reduction. 1% budgetary reserve, which we typically will build into the budget year after year. That was kept in at $490,000. And the Schuylkill Valley Education Center, which again, previously was the BCYC, you've seen on my previous presentation last year. The SVEC is projected at a cost of $636,000, and that's flat funded. So again, total changes from above yield a $2.2 million increase in expenditures for the 25-26 year over 24-25. Any questions?
Kristen, just because it's in the news and a big topic of discussion, can you just explain to everyone what our portion of funding is that we get from the federal government?
Yes. So we typically will receive it's normally about 1% of our total revenue. It's about $400,000. Title I, II, III, and IV would be what we would receive. In terms of the federal funding itself, nothing has necessarily been said as far as if we wouldn't receive that, if it would be moved to the state level. But again, it's 1% of our total revenue budget.
And then we would also factor into that any of the IDEA funds, which would be in addition to that Title I, II, III, and Title IV, which we roll into Title II. So for what it means for us, and I think I'm glad you asked the question, Mrs. Steinke, because this is in the news, right? If the Title VI certification deadline was extended till the 24th or the 28th, I believe, and the concern is if schools don't sign it, they may or could potentially, one of the things that could happen would be this loss of federal funding. That has not been determined, and we are working with our solicitor and with other solicitors to try to understand what the impact will be. But for us, even if that were to come true, it would be 1% of our funding, which we pay for Title I. Almost the entirety of our Title I funding is spent on our reading specialist salaries. So it would be that, and funding those salaries out of our general budget.
Yep. And then professional development.
And then
Title II.
our professional development. So I think that's where that 1% budgetary reserve is really important this year. It would cover what we get in the Title I, II, III, and IV funding.
Entirely. Yeah.
Entirely.
Yep.
Would we lose any of the commodities, like we get discounts in the commodities for our food service? Or is that, I know I've heard it that they might take that into the Department of Agriculture versus taking it, moving it out of the Department of Education.
Yeah, I haven't heard yet if it would reduce or if we would lose it in any way. I haven't heard anything yet on that. As far as it might just be moved, but in terms of our
Right, I
piece,
just didn't
our
know
share
if we
of
don't
it.
certify that, if that's another thing that could be imperiled, and I know that's
On the
kind of
food
like
service
baked
side.
in with a lot of other calculations as we
Right.
work on school lunch. It's kind of interesting because they've expanded the free lunches and everything else, and now they want to take certain things away. So.
It's another area that we're in a very good financial position in our food service right now. So even if that were the case, we've already made sure that we would be prepared to be able to move forward next year, and we are in that financial position. I will tell you, we received a letter on April 9th from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they expressed the view that the certification changes that we are being asked to sign in Title VI, that PDE would not be signing that certification. So I think right now, we're in a wait-and-see mode, but we have built a budget that even if that came to pass, we would still be okay for the coming school year. And we would not be reducing the services that we provide to students through Title I, the professional development services that we provide to our staff and our ELL services, nor would it impact what we do with Title IV.
I just like to say, when I first came on the board, funding was very different than what it is now. And so when we had something called a hold harmless statement that we had to sign every year, and it said we would get the exact same thing from the state the next year that we got the year before. Well, that doesn't exist anymore, and we just can't say we want so much percent because there's Act 1, and when Act 1 first came out, there was a special ed and a pension exclusion that you could use. Well, we did that, we applied for that, got it, and we no longer qualify for that. So I had attended a lot of basic education and fair funding formula workshops over the years where when we went to those things, we thought funding was going to be even different than it is now. And it kind of backfired in a way because now we're at kind of a disadvantage in our thing. And we just can't just go back and say there's this big pot of money and we're just going to take our share of it. It doesn't work that way anymore. And I think the public needs to know that we have to be very careful how we spend our money, and we're doing a good job without raising taxes. If it gets to the point where we would sacrifice something in the district, I think we would make a different decision. But we have to have our budget approved. If we would raise taxes, we would have to have this done in January?
Yeah, if we would,
there's a different
if we,
date.
well, again, if we would, based on the Act 1, the Act 1 timeline, around
we'd
December.
have to have it done earlier, and we decided we're not going to do that, so we get more time
we do.
to work on it, so we can see what the actual facts are. So if the public wonders why we couldn't before and we can't now, it's a whole different game now, so.
And it's a great point that we were not on an accelerated timeline because we were not going to raise taxes over the index. But if we were anticipating doing that, our timeline changes. I know there's times people will say, I need more time to think about what we want to do with the budget. We would love to have more time, but we don't have more time. We have to have it done in this time frame. Just right now, once we post, should the board choose to approve this final proposed budget, it will get posted for 30 days. There can still be changes made during that time, but we do not have the pleasure of not having our budget done and approved in June. The governor may or may not have his budget done, but we do not have that ability. And so and it must be balanced. You cannot present a budget that is not balanced. So our rules are very different, and we have to subscribe to those timelines. Even this motion tonight that we're asking the board to do is so that the business office can have all the tax bills done and everything processed and ready to make sure that we're prepared for the beginning of school.
Thank you, Mrs. Wallace, for your presentation.
Thanks for that presentation. And if everybody out there liked it, you really would have enjoyed the 2-3-hour workshops. Every board member sat in and went over this in detail, okay?
Listen, some of us do enjoy it, so.
I enjoyed it. It was good.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bendigo, I'm not going to comment on that. So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion on 8.6? So this is just a regular vote. So All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. This passes 9-0. I guess, Nikki, I'll handle 8-7.
All righty. Thank you, Kristen, again.
8.7, are there any old or new business under budget and finance? Hearing none, we'll move on to 9.0.
All right, thank you. 9.1, any persons who wish to address the board? There are none. 9.2, Onalani Township discharge permit. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Onalani Township pretreatment program discharge permit. The permit shall be valid for a period of 3 years, expiring on March 31st, 2028. Any comments or questions about that? Okay. 9.3, proposals for Republic Services. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the proposals from Republic Services for solid waste disposal and recycling services during the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, and the following amounts per building. High school, $662.49 a month. Middle school, $612.26 per month. And elementary school, $662.49 per month. Any questions or comments about that?
Do we bid those services?
We actually, Mrs. Wallace and Dr. Winters looked at the BCIU joint bid, and this price is actually lower than the bid price. And this is the second time that we've done that. Actually, each year for the past 3 years, we've looked at the bid price, and our company has come in lower than the bid price.
Great.
It doesn't legally have to be bid.
Yeah. I just wondered, since it's a service and there's multiple
Correct.
suppliers, that
Yep.
we went shopping.
Cool. Any other questions or comments? We'll move that forward. Hold on 1 second. 9.4, train water source heat pump unit in MS middle school classroom. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of Vision Mechanical Incorporated to provide labor and material to swap out the train water source heat pump unit in a middle school classroom in the amount of $12,760. Any questions or comments about that? Hearing none. 9.5, any other old or new business for buildings and grounds?
Just a thank you to the Buildings and Grounds and all the coaches who came out to the discussion on the field house and to the board for all their work on that. The Schrader Group will be here next Monday for a presentation on where that currently stands. That is factored into the budget with a 0% budget increase.
Awesome, thank you.
Is the pool, all the pool renovations, that's all now complete and correct?
The pool renovation is complete. We'll need to put up a video board that will be larger than our current scoreboard, and we have that factored into the budget as well, along with some softball, baseball scoreboards, and some other scoreboard needs that we have. But the pool renovation itself is complete.
Thank you.
Any other old or new business for buildings and grounds? Okay, 10.0, student services and activities.
Okay, 10.1, persons who wish to address the board. Seeing none, we'll move on to 10.2. We have the tour trip to Germany, France, and Spain, and I believe Ms. Aldorfer has a presentation for us.
So the PowerPoint has a lot of slides. I will not belabor your 10 minutes or less.
You have the clicker. You have the power.
If I know how to use the clicker. So first of all, thank you to the board for the trips you have approved in the past. Like we said, Dr. O'Donnell just came back and the saucers with the 17, I think, students from Costa Rica yesterday. That's a really tough one. I've done one spring break trip. Summertime is easier because you get to relax when you get home. But they just came off a wonderful trip. I haven't heard much about it yet, but I had 4 homeroom students on that trip. So they came in very excited and not sunburned. They were happy to report. So am I pushing the green button? On the right, okay. So again, I'm not going to belabor because you are familiar with EF, although there are some new board members since my presentation in the past, or Michelle. So EF is Education First. That is the company that we use. My preference, because they're the biggest in the business, biggest and oldest and most competent. They're just the best at what they do, which is why we work with them. The dots on that map represent everywhere in the planet that EF has offices. They've got 60-plus years of experience, and there are staff on the ground, 365, in over 50 countries. So everywhere we go, they have offices. If we would need them, they're right there. I am Mrs. Aldifer, for those of you that may not know. I'm German teacher here at the middle school and the high school. These are high school trips. Mrs. Saucer and I are proposing this trip to include my German students, her Spanish students, and also students in French club. The trips we've done in the past were my Germany and the Alps trip last summer for students of German, and then she did the Costa Rica trip for Spanish students. My French club, I believe 7 or 8 of us are going at the end of May to French Canada, Montreal and Quebec, just for 6 days. So this trip that we're proposing for 2027 would be a combination for all those groups of students could be on the same trip. So this would be Germany, France, and Spain with 2 days in Portugal at the end of it. So it's an ambitious itinerary, but it is summertime. So it's 16 days, including Portugal. 2 nights in each place gives us enough time to kind of enjoy the space that we're in and not feel like we're running too hard between hotels. But we will spend the first part of the trip in Germany, Munich and Heidelberg, then on to France, Paris, and then south to southern part of France and Provence for a night, and then on to Madrid and Barcelona in Spain, and then Lisbon, Portugal for the final 2 nights of the trip. So that's kind of an overview, and you all have this, so again, I won't take a lot of your time tonight with this, but this is highlights of where we'll be in Germany, as well as where we'll be in France, and then in Spain, and Portugal for the last 2 days. Of course, the food is always a piece of the interesting part of the culture. We always enjoy the food. So we look forward to students experiencing foods they maybe haven't had before in these places. We always request a window of travel dates, and then if we are not large enough to be a private tour, meaning that we would fill a bus just with Schuylkill Valley students, then we get combined with another school. So that's why they ask us to choose a travel window. And then closer to the date, if we're a private tour, we get our requested dates, which is the middle part, June 22nd to July 7th. If we're combined with another school, then we need that flexibility to make our dates work with the other group on the bus. I'm expecting, because I had 16 students for Germany, and the Saucers had 17 for Costa Rica, I think we'll fill enough students on this tour to be a private tour, just be Schuylkill Valley.
Mrs. Aldifer, what was the total needed again for the private tour?
I believe 35 is the minimum for a student to be a private tour. So the price for students that they pay for the trip includes their airfare, our hotels, breakfast every day, and dinners every night. Tour director who's with us 24/7. So they meet us at the airport when we arrive, and they're with us the entire tour till they take us back to the airport at the end of day 16. We have a private coach on tour. We drive a lot on an air-conditioned bus. We have local guides in the cities where we visit, so that those guides do the tours within each city that we visit. Sightseeing, every entrances to everything we do. If Paris, if we go to the Louvre, everything is included in the price the students pay. And all of that is timed and scheduled by EF. They cram as much as they can possibly fit into student trips. I always say the most expensive part about going to Europe is the plane ticket, so stay as long as you can, see as much as you can. So that's why, big trip. And EF, again, because they're the biggest in the industry for student travel, their safety and incident response team is the best in the industry. So if anything goes sideways, they have response teams 24/7, and like I said, people in the countries where we are. When COVID hit, they had, of course, student trips all over the place. When that happened, they had everybody home back in the U.S. within several days. Other tour companies had some kids stranded out there for a couple of weeks, but EF got everybody back within several days. And their health standards, of course, if there's health concerns at all, of course, they follow the protocols as recommended. And our tour director, like I said, is with us the entire trip. The tour director is someone who lives in the country or countries where we live, where we are visiting, and speak the languages. So the person we'll have on this tour will speak German, French, Spanish, and probably Portuguese. They also have liability coverage, which covers districts and teachers on a trip like this. And as I said, they have staff in 50 countries, over 50,000 staff in those offices. And again, they've got a whole lot more information if you want it about their certificate of insurance. In fact, I think that's on the next slide. It's coming up. They actually posted on one of the slides. We also have a peace of mind program with EF, meaning 2027 is pretty far away. If something were to happen between now and then to where it's not a good idea to travel some of the places we have on the itinerary, we can change that without adding any cost to the group. They would work with us to adjust our itinerary or change destinations if necessary. And for the travelers themselves, the students and chaperones, there's global travel protection also built in to the price of their trip, so that if there would be a medical situation on tour, or if baggage doesn't arrive when we do, or if there was some reason you had to cancel your trip, there's all kinds of protections built in, which is automatically built into the student tours. Typically, we launch these trips. Why we're presenting this now so far ahead is because it is a longer trip. So to keep the monthly payments, which is usually how students are paying for trips, or parents are budgeting monthly, the farther ahead we start, the smaller the monthly payments, making it more possible for more students to travel. So they have a risk-free enrollment period from the time we present the trip to parents, potentially next month, assuming the board votes yes on this trip next week. We would have a parent meeting next month, and they could start already enrolling and making payments to keep the payments very manageable. You all, I believe, have this presentation. So if you wanted to, you can click in and see the links for the samples of types of hotels that we stay in. They're all carefully vetted by EF. And meals, like I said, we have every evening we have dinner together as a group, and breakfast is included at the hotel where we stayed that night, overnight. At lunchtime, we're on our own for lunch so the kids can try and experience other kinds of food on our own with a chaperone. I also, on my Germany trip last summer, I had two students, one with celiac, one with Crohn's disease. So they had to be very careful. But we went to grocery stores for lunchtime, and they knew how to read labels and to pick foods that were safe for them. So if there's any food issues at all or allergies, the tour director gets notified by us ahead of time so they can tell the restaurants we're eating in to make sure kids have safe foods for them. And then, like I said, we managed quite well in Germany with kids who had gluten sensitivities last summer. There's also global citizen scholarships, which kids can apply for, which are needs and merit-based. Every traveler also gets a tour donation page, so they can share that link. It's like a GoFundMe page, except they get all the money. So a parent or relative for birthdays or Christmas can put money in there, and it goes directly to their own account and pays down part of their trip for their balance. And again, we work with EF because they have all these other things as well. Students can, if they choose to, earn high school or college credit. There's some hoops they have to jump through to do that, but that's available. And also college essay help. As students are planning and applying for college, they can use this trip as an experience in their application for college. Why I love traveling with students, and I've been doing this since 2005, is to see the growth in kids. They come away so much more confident because they've been able to navigate things in a different country, in a different language, without mom and dad, and figure things out that they didn't know that they could do. It also gives them experience, firsthand experience in a culture other than our own, where I feel like they also develop appreciation for different perspectives of other people in other places. And this again hits on the safety and support of EF. So students, like I said, if we propose this spring, their payments are much more affordable than if we wait until the fall, because then the number 6 months later is higher per month. So it keeps it affordable for students if we can start this far ahead. This is a lot of fine print, but basically that explains why we start so far ahead, to give more students the opportunity to travel. And like I said, the students, when we open the enrollment for the tour, potentially next month, in the first 2 weeks that the tour is open, they get $200 off the tour price if they sign up on the front end. And also, yeah, there's some more stuff on there too about proof of performance, bond, and so forth, all the legalese details. Some references that's really tiny to read, but it's parents stating the experience that their children had on EF tours. On the right-hand side in the really tiny print is their certificate of liability insurance. And again, some more teacher and parent experiences. And then Allison is the tour consultant we work with. They are assigned to regions, so Allison, who works with schools in this part of Pennsylvania. So she also included her information at the end. If anyone would have questions specifically for EF that I wouldn't be able to answer, her information is on there as well. So what questions do you have, if any? Yes? Yes, that includes airfare, hotels, everything. The kids need to bring money for lunch and free time, but everything we do on that tour is included in that price. Lunch and souvenirs. And I tell the kids I don't buy a lot of stuff anymore. I take pictures, and I come home and make a Snapfish book with my pictures. I used to buy a lot of stuff, but what are you going to do with a lot of stuff? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to 10.3. Schuylkill Valley High School Student Code of Conduct for 25 and 26. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Schuylkill Valley High School Student Code of Conduct and Handbook for the 25-26 school year. Mrs. Godfrey had given a presentation last meeting. Ms. Kreider is here to answer any other questions we might have. From Paul. I'm going to give you one token for a question, Paul.
One quick question. So in the proposal that we looked at 2 months ago, under transportation, there was a section there where it said students are not permitted to accept a ride from a student who drives unless they have permission from the parent. Under the new one, that has been deleted. Is there a reason why we don't have a need to get those permissions for students to ride with another student, either from either parent?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that was deleted. I would have to follow up with Mrs. Godfrey about that. I do know that our BCTC students are required. We actually, as the building administrators, have to sign off on a form for our BCTC students to be able to ride with another student or have them transport another student to and from BCTC. And I think that's just so the parents are aware. They also have to sign off on those forms. So I'll have to follow up with why that was taken out of our handbook on our end as well.
Yeah, I think if that comes back in, you really need permission from both parents.
I agree.
The parent that owns the car or the
Yes.
student driver and whoever the student is riding with that person.
I agree. Yep.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Okay, we're done.
That's it.
Move on.
You did a good job.
I know. I do want to give a quick thank you to Mrs. Godfrey, who obviously isn't here this evening, but she really did the brunt of the work on the high school handbook updates, and she did a great job, so I just want to thank her for that.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions about that? We'll move that forward. 10.4, the Schuylkill Valley Middle School Student Code of Conduct for 25-26. We have Dr. Grubrillik to give us a presentation on that.
Okay, I have to remember how to use this. To the right. Oop. There we go. Good evening, Dr. Tashner and school board members. I'm here to walk you through a summary of the handbook changes that we've made since we last met. As we move through, this is just showing you the sections that we have really worked hard to ensure that we were aligning not only across the district between buildings, but also along with school board policy. We made changes to our general information, our academic student services, attendance, discipline, our general rules and procedures, our health services, student safety, and student activities and program sections. When we take a look at the middle school general information, the one thing that Dr. Keener and I always try to do is we try to update our message from the principals, which kicks off our agenda book. And we really wanted to make sure that we were ensuring that it was positive and that we wanted to show that we were looking forward to the new school year. So we did update with those reasons in mind. For our student rights and responsibilities, we just made sure that we updated those to align with our Title 22 of the Pennsylvania School Code, Chapter 12.1. On page 7, we took a look at our school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports, and we changed from PBIS to SWPBIS to ensure that we were focused on indicating that this was a school-wide program, and we updated it to reflect PDE language as well as descriptors of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports. For instance, we had initially stated in the section, what about disruptive students? We had initially said that we developed a discipline system integrated with the code of conduct. And this caused a lot of confusion because people were saying, well, we have the code of conduct, which is our discipline system, the PBIS program, or the code of conduct. And so what we did is we made sure, like for instance in that section, we changed the language to the PDE language, noting that when problem behaviors occur, students are provided with supports and consequences to address them, and so on and so forth. The fourth change that we made in the emergency closings and late starts was really just refining the public media list to reflect our current notification lists. We actually removed WIOV, WRFY, and WGAL from our lists. When moving into the academic and student services section, we removed the flexible grouping statement because currently we're doing some collaborative work on our school schedule, and we're examining the concept of flexible grouping and what that looks like within some scheduling possibilities. We also upgraded our grading system, and we aligned it with the grading scale from the high school to better reflect some of those academic pieces and remaining consistent between buildings. We also removed the marking periods from our code of conduct with weather delays and inclement weather. We often find those changes to occur for the third and fourth marking periods, and so we decided to remove those dates out of there because they don't remain consistent throughout the school year. And then finally, the athletic and academic code. We aligned ours with the high school to remain consistent within the buildings. When it came to the attendance section, we took a look at our excused absences section, and we made sure that we aligned this with our school board policy 204 for the reasons for excused absences, and those actually mirror what is in our school board policy. We also removed the doctor's excuses explanation. We found some of the language within that attendance section very redundant, so we took that piece out and it was addressed in other parts of the attendance section. Taking a look at discipline, we did update our detention time to reflect a 40-minute detention, so that way it remained a consistent disciplinary measure across all of the levels throughout the district. We also updated the infractions matrix, and we did this K through 12, where we made some edits to remove some redundant infractions. So we removed the repeated violation of various levels noted repeatedly throughout that code matrix. And we also removed repeated physical contact with intent to harm. That language was reflective in simple assault. We also made some adjustments based on severity and our MOU guidelines. We moved three pieces to our level 4 from level 3, discharging a fire extinguisher, fighting, and simple assault were moved to a higher level of disciplinary infractions. And then when we took a look at disciplinary definitions for the bus discipline piece, we did remove the table that was in there. It was causing a lot of confusion, not only amongst our students, but also amongst parents, and we wanted to make that a little bit clearer. We also aligned it out alphabetically within our disciplinary definitions. We also went through and took a look at the disciplinary definitions when we referred to anything that had to do with school board policy. We made sure that that language was aligned with the policy. For instance, when looking at the search of student property, our previous code of conduct was a little more restrictive than what school board policy was. So we made sure that we indicated that that reflected exactly what was within the school board policy for each one of those pieces. Taking a look at the general rules and procedures section, we changed the word from book bag to backpack to make it a little bit more relevant. We also aligned the language under personal expression to make sure that that language aligned with the school board policy. We did update the dress code. We aligned it with the high school proposed dress code and with school board policy. We included making sure that clothing choices should not disrupt the educational environment or cause a health or safety concern. We made sure that we added dress requirements for specific classes like physical education, tech ed, sciences, anything with a lab. And we also noted in there that when students are going on a school-based trip, that they dress in a manner that represents our school district well. And then finally, we took a look at the acceptable use of internet, computers, and network resources. We actually pulled the language specifically from School Board Policy 815 to align the list of prohibited uses found within the policy. Under the health services section, we did update multiple sections through here, and we aligned that language across all of the district buildings based on and with school nurse input. And we aligned school board policy language anywhere the policy was noted within those sections. Additionally, within our school safety section, we made sure that the language was aligned with school board policy, and we wanted to make sure that our language mirrored the standard response protocol that we have within our buildings. We also wanted to make sure that we were enhancing the enforceability of the things that were within our code of conduct, especially in this section. For instance, we initially had language like talking during fire drills is not permitted, or talking during lockdown drills is prohibited. And although we value that and we do want students to follow those expectations, when you're coming in from a fire drill and there may be 50 students who talked out of turn, it becomes very difficult as an administrator to address some of those pieces. So what we would do instead is we would work with the teacher, reteaching the expectations of what we would want to see in a drill, while having them actually go out and practice it multiple times, so that way we can make sure our students do understand the expectations during our drills. The final section, which is our student activities and programs, really in here, there weren't a lot of updates. We did update some of the current music offerings. We reached out to all of our musical teachers and said, make sure that these are the things that we really do offer here at the middle school. And we went over that list, reviewed the list with them, and updated that. We also made sure that in the section where it talks about student-centered social activities, that we removed language in there that conflicted with the disciplinary matrix. Are there any questions?
Just one.
Sure.
First of all, thanks for doing all those updates. In the original one that you gave to us under general rules and procedures in the cafeteria, you had a quiet time of 2 minutes may be imposed when necessary. And now it got added to the end of that, this shall not be used as a punishment. So when is it used if it's not used as a punishment?
Well, what I will tell you is that was an oversight, and actually that is going to be removed from the code of conduct.
The whole section?
That piece, yes.
And the high school has something in there. They include loud, boisterous conduct will not be tolerated. So, I mean, you can put something in there if you think, it's needed or whatever, but I think we got rid of quiet times
Yes.
in the lunch
Yes,
room
I apologize
a long
for that.
time ago. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No more discussion on 10.4. We'll move on to 10.5. We have a settlement agreement. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the settlement agreement and release for student 4199. And we have an attachment for the board there. Any discussion on this one? If nobody else does, I have a question about it.
Might be best discussed during executive session. Did you say you did have a question?
I do have a question. Yeah, that's fine.
Executive session.
That's
Executive
fine.
session.
Yep. Okay, we'll move that forward. 10.6. We have another trust agreement for student number 4199. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of third-party educational trust for student number 4199. And we can discuss that in executive session as well. 10.7, district physician contract. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the independent contractor agreement for school physician services with Dr. Angela Zawiza. And that agreement is attached. Any questions or comments on that? We will move that forward. 10.8, we have a team physician and AT services agreement. The committee is requested to consider and recommend approval of the Penn State Health Team Physician and Athletic Training Services Agreement. And a copy of that agreement has been enclosed. Do we have any questions on that one? Okay, hearing none, we'll move that forward. 10.9, any other old or new business?
Our attendance presentation will be moved to next week.
Okay.
Moving on to 11.0, any other business for the good of the order? Hearing none, 12.0, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Clifford.
Second.
Steinke.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.